Hey, how's it going, everybody? If you're new here, welcome in. And if you've been here before, you know what to do. Smash the like button on the way in. I'm Rollshambo, the connoisseur and collector of all things sharp and shiny. And today I'm excited because we got in a new knife from our friends over at Kubey. Now you might be wondering what came in the box. This is the Kubey Ceto. And guys, I already know some of you are furiously typing away in the comment section, Rollshambo, I hate Ultim. I can tell already. The good news is, guys, is that if you're not the biggest fan of Ultim, they also have this in G10. And of course, I will leave a link below, and I'll also include my 20% off discount code on kubeyknife.com. But let's go ahead and get into it. This is a knife that I actually asked them about. I requested this one about 3, maybe 4 months ago. But they sold out so quickly on the first initial run that I just didn't have the opportunity to get one. And now I finally have the opportunity, and I'm actually kind of excited about this because I really like the blade design. The blade geometry and the edge geometry actually kind of reminds me of a couple different knives, but it's not exactly like them. The first knife that this reminds me of, at least on the blade shape, is going to be the microtech stitch. The microtech stitch has a similarly shaped blade, but this one has a bit more curve to it. I'm not entirely sure what you would call this, but it has a nice amount of belly to it and this beautiful stonewash finish. Now, depending upon which version you're looking at, these go anywhere from the $80 range before the discount code down to the $70 range if you go with one that has G10. Both versions come with their really well done 60 to 62 cryo treated 14C. And guys, I've said this so many times, I truly believe that Kubey is giving us the best example on 14C currently. There's a few other companies out there that are starting to do the same, but Kubey aims for 60 to 62 Rockwell. You know, other companies, they're not doing that. They're satisfied at 59, and people don't complain when we're talking about less expensive knives. But Kubey is doing a great job of showing us just what 14C is capable of. You get the best out of this steel at that target range, and you can only hit it if you do a cryo treat. So Kubey does, and so they do, in fact, get the best out of 14C28N. We have Ultim handle scales, of course, but as I mentioned, you can get it in G10. The overall length is over 8 inches. And so you might be thinking, oh, that looks like a nice smaller knife. No, this is a full size knife. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. So here's the Kubey Ceto, and here is the Spyderco Paramilitary 2. Yeah, and it's not shorter than the Paramilitary 2 either. It's taller. The Paramilitary 2 is a great knife to compare against because it shows you blade geometry and blade height because, you know, Spydercos have this hump right here, so they are regularly taller than most knives. But in this case, not with the Ceto. And that surprised me. I expected this to be smaller. Anyways, when it comes down to the rest of the materials, we have a skeletonized steel liner, which you can, of course, see through the scales. It's got a liner lock, which is locked up just as if it was doing 25 to life. And, of course, we also have a matching Ultim backspacer with the lanyard pin in the backspacer. Hallelujah. I'm so glad that they did that instead of putting it through the scale. Honestly, I wish that we saw this more often and more prevalently in knives across the board. Even more expensive knives, we always see these lanyard holes going through the beautiful milling on the scales. Now, the scales themselves have this really nicely done radial milling job, which it feels good. It gives you a tactile response in your hand. So when you're gripping the knife, even though Ultim has a tendency to be slick, that radial milling helps get you some extra grip as well. It has these dedicated grip cutouts on the underside of the handle scale to help you get a nice locked in feel. And on the deployment, you've got 2 options and 2 options only, and that's going to be the flipper tab, which, yes, you can, in fact, push button, and then these oversized thumb studs. And I gotta say, typically, I'm not the biggest thumb stud guy, but Kubey actually did this right. With these oversized studs, you get a lot of response from these, and you also have the opportunity to deploy this a number of different ways, which, you know what? Sometimes thumb studs are just uncomfortable to me, but these actually are really well done. On the spine of the blade, we have this really well done jimping all the way up to the apex peak of the blade itself. And so when you are holding the knife like this, you are in a nicely locked up position. The sharpening choil is also really well done, and it gives you plenty of space between the plunge grind and the edge termination. So when you go to sharpen this, you're not going to find yourself putting a smile on the end of that blade. If you're looking at that logo right there, that is from Muzi Design. They also did the Kubey Wrath that I reviewed not too terribly long ago, and this is going to be along the same lines. I'm getting self-defense vibes from this knife, but something that I noticed, especially when I was doing my cut test, was the edge and blade geometry is nice and thin and slicey. It goes through cardboard really, really well. And so it's going to be a slicer. It's not too terribly thick here on the spine of the blade, and it stays nice and thin all the way up until the flat, in which case it falls off almost completely with that swedge, and it gets very pokey behind the tip. So that tells me that this is going to be good for stabbing, good for slicing. It's going to be an all-around pretty great cutter. And following the winning theme that Kubey has really found out recently, we have T8 body screws, T8 pivot screws on a single-sided captive pivot. Of course, it is running on ceramic bearings, so it is fully drop shut, no muss, no fuss, and it makes that nice sound as well. So I don't know if you're an acoustics person. Honestly, I think acoustics are just part of the experience, but I really like the sound it makes when it locks out as well as when it drops shut. That's just nice, and it gives it a really nice tactile feel. As far as indexing the knife goes, balance is not an issue on this either. I will say this though, I am not the biggest fan of these finger groove cutouts. It's not that they're uncomfortable, because they actually do fit my hand pretty well. And if I had to take a guess, I would say that they probably designed these to fit the average man-sized hands. But average is not everybody, and I could see that some people actually finding those uncomfortable if they have bigger hands or much smaller hands. I'm not a huge fan of the telling me where to put my fingers. You know, one finger cutout is cool, but I really wish that they had just left it that and then smoothed out the handle scales to be all one piece. I think that that would have helped greatly. As it stands, I don't have an issue with the ergonomics, but I could see how potentially somebody else might. As far as anything else that I'd like to see on this knife, honestly, I would love to see a titanium version. This is giving me strong Kubey titanium Titius vibes. I would love to have a titanium version. Keep it as a liner lock. That liner lock is good. The action is really satisfying to actuate, but I really do want to see this in either a carbon fiber or a titanium variant. I think that that would be absolutely phenomenal, and I, for one, would just love to see that as an option moving forward. But now I'm curious as to what your thoughts are. Have you checked out the Kubey Ceto yet, or is this one that you passed on and will continue to pass on? If not, why not? Let me know in the comments section down below, guys. If you liked the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you watched this far and you are not subscribed, make sure you get subscribed. And by the way, if you want to watch more awesome knife and EDC content, go ahead and click on one of the videos that pops up next.